We're going to try this again. I had some camera issues again. I feel like every time I sit down at this desk, I have camera issues. I had a microphone issue. I believe we're up and rolling again. Um, my camera is still a little crooked, but I also think I just discovered that this exterior wall of my house behind me has a giant S bend in it, is slightly crooked. I got a little bit into this video, had to stop because my fish tank was making a humming sound. One of the pumps, I had to go turn that off. So I think we're good to go now. So we're going to just roll with it and get started. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video and welcome back to the channel. Captain Cody Davis sitting down with you guys once again just to shoot another one of these. And today's video is going to be, I don't know. I have absolutely no idea how long this video is going to be. There's a lot to go over and a lot that I kind of want to get out there. And we're going to be talking about an issue that we have been having down here in our great state of Florida for some time now. In my opinion, I think it's an issue that is very complicated, yet very simple at the same time. I believe it's an issue that is going to downright start a civil war in this state with amongst us outdoorsmen, us fishermen, whatever you might call it. And basically, we're going to be talking about the water issues down here in Florida. And I'm not going to, there's so many different categories. You've got water quality issues. You've got the discharging of the lake, which is kind of what's bringing this whole thing up. Just to catch you guys up to speed, the Army Corps of Engineers in the state of Florida announced that starting tomorrow, they're going to begin discharges coming from Lake Okeechobee to both the east and west coast. And they're also going to be sending a good amount of water south. And when it comes down to it, the entire state is up in arms. There's going to be picket signs and flaming torches and all kinds of stuff like that. And, like I said, I feel like I've had to remake this video a half dozen times throughout my entirety here on YouTube, which hasn't been very long. But, this is an issue that I'm very passionate about. This is an issue that I really think about literally every single day while out on the water with customers. And it's an issue that I talk about with my customers 4 to 5 days a week because it is important. And like I think I already said, I believe it is very complicated. There are a ton of moving parts with this issue. But at the end of the day, it is 2024 and we still can't find a way to resolve it. And I think that's pretty sad. But like I said, we're going to be talking about the discharging of water. Well, just all the water issues in our state of Florida. Now, here's the deal. The discharges are starting, and everyone's watching this video right now saying, well, the guy's got a Lake Okeechobee poster behind him. He's got a bass cutout above his head. He's got a bass trophy. He's got his son making a picture of some kind of frog at daycare. This guy is going to get on here and tell me that it's Lake Okeechobee or nothing, and the coast is going to have to deal with it. And that's what it's going to be. But that's not what I'm going to do at all. That's actually kind of the farthest thing from it. Now, I know I'm going to say things in this clip that the coast people are not going to want to hear. And, well, that's just kind of what comes with it. All right. Now, here's the deal. What I am going to do, which no one does in society or in today's modern era at all with anything when it comes to politics, when it comes to laws, when it comes to anything you can think of. And they damn sure don't do it when it comes to the water issues or fishing down here in Florida, is look at all sides and look at the big picture. All right. I don't want to say I've yet to, but it's very difficult to find a charter captain, guide, whatever you want to call whatever the heck we are, people who take people fishing, that isn't going to argue or fight and be very biased opinion, have a biased opinion and one-sided to the issue. They're going to fight for what waterway or what's right for what benefits them. So if they make their living in the Indian River Lagoon, they're going to say, fill Lake Okeechobee in with concrete and make it a subdivision. The hell with it. We don't need its water. If you meet a guy that is a crappie guide on Lake Okeechobee, he's going to say the people on the coast are just whining about nothing. The hell with them. We need the lake a certain way. And that's kind of what's been happening over the last, 20 years or however long this issue's been around. And here we are. I'm making the video because it has not gone anywhere. I can honestly say there has been absolutely not one step forward in progress in my lifetime in fixing this issue. Now, your groups that get together and go to these meetings and fight for certain things can tell you and post on their social media accounts that there has been progress and things are happening. And maybe you get a little step forward here, a step to the side, but here we are. We don't have we haven't found a way to resolve this issue. All right. And again, it is a complicated issue because there's a lot of different issues in and amongst this one big issue, which is just water in Florida. One thing I find crazy is that before we really get into things is when you think of Florida, you, for the most part, think of water. Depending on what walk of life you're from, you think about it in different ways. If you love the beach, you think about standing out on Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Delray Beach on the east coast of Florida, going for a walk as the sun's coming up. You're looking at going offshore fishing down here in South Florida and being able to catch sailfish, mahi, big kingfish, blackfin tunas in 30 feet of water off the East Coast. You're thinking of eating dinner on the West Coast, watching the sunset over Naples Pier, or being out on Captiva or whatever. Or you might be thinking about coming down here to take part in our bass fishing on Lake Okeechobee, the Kissimmee Chain, Lake Toho. Maybe you're just going water skiing and want to dock out off of a house. Your dream was to live on a lake and you're on Lake Placid with your own dock, or whatever the case might be. In some way, shape, or form, when you come down here to Florida, whether you're visiting or you're down here to live, for the most part, it's the water that drives you here, that brings you here. And with that being said, it's our biggest tourist attractor. It's everything. It's our dollar down here in Florida. And this state does the best job it possibly can to F it all up. And that's one thing that I think is just absolutely crazy, that they look at all this stuff that's around and what's built around the water, but they don't look at the water. It's the water. Whether it's fresh or salt, it doesn't matter. And I think that's an issue. That right there is a statement that none of these organizations or these groups, both fresh and saltwater groups, think about. They're all very one-sided. They're all very, no one's looking at the big picture, which is insane to me. And like I said before, we'll kind of get into this issue, in my opinion, right here. And I'm not saying I'm right about everything, but you're going to look at, I'm a bass fisherman. I'm a bass guide when it comes down to it. My intentions when I started my guiding business were to do both snook and bass fishing. And I do run snook trips. I run tarpon trips. I do run inshore trips from time to time, but my bread and butter, 95% of my business is done out here on Lake Okeechobee. So when the news comes out that they're discharging the lake, your immediate reaction is probably, well, you're happy about it. And I am. But at the same time, I'm not, because it's done in a very stupid and shitty way. I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys, any of you guys that follow me, I have no idea how long this video is going to be. I don't know what I'm going to rant, what I'm going to say. It's something I'm very fired up about. It's something I'm very passionate about. Might not use the best language in this, and I apologize, but I'm just going to say, however I feel it needs to be said. But they're doing a very shitty job at the way they're doing this. And the people on the coast have every right to be pissed and mad. The problem is, I don't think they truly know why they're mad and why they're upset. I think they hear Lake Okeechobee water and they're up in arms and they want nothing to do with it. One of my biggest problems with this entire issue here is the bantering, the name calling, the disrespecting of the lake that's behind me, which is Lake Okeechobee. The coast has done everything, and I'm not profiling, but I am. The coast has done everything in their local media outlets, magazines, newspapers, to talk down and beat this lake up and just talk about it like it's a polluted cesspool of just lifeless, disgusting, algae filled water. When it comes down to it, it's literally the complete opposite. One of the biggest things to me that pisses me off, and like, here's the deal, guys. Like, I've really tried to change my train of thinking and thought process when it comes to interacting with people on social media and stuff, because it's not worth it. It's not worth your time. Facebook comments do absolutely nothing. Instagram comments do nothing. Hashtags do absolutely nothing. None of this stupid shit on social media does a damn thing to fix anything. And I feel like the way the algorithms work, all it does is shows you stuff, tries its very best to show you things that are going to piss you off so that you interact more. And that's not helping anybody's cause or case or anything. So it's crazy to me, though. I do read the comments. I read comments on things I have absolutely no association with, whether it's just Facebook pages on things and stuff. And there are so many people that talk so bad about this lake. And I'd be willing to bet. I mean, I'd bet my boat, that basically my office, and I'd bet money I don't have that 85% of those comments are coming from individuals that have never, ever been within 20 miles of Lake Okeechobee. They've never been in it. They've never seen it. All they've seen are satellite pictures of it filled with algae the 4 days a year that it's filled with algae. When the water temperature spikes up fast and it gets to that perfect temperature that we have an algae bloom, and the coastal media flies their drones over our lake and takes pictures of it and shows that to everybody. They've never been in it. They've never driven through. They've never seen the vast life that this lake has, within it. The amazing fishing, the clean water, everything that this lake's about and what makes it so special. They've never seen it. And they're sitting at their house, or maybe they're sitting at their home in a different state, but they own a condo that they visit on the coast 4, 5, 6 days out of the year. And they hear the local talk in the bars and the taverns and out on the water that Lake Okeechobee water is toxic. And it's just a game of telephone that just never ends. And this lake gets nothing but bad press, when this lake was here well before your condo. This lake was here well before all of us were even thought of. It's amazing to me how many people I take out on this lake every day, and they ask me how long it took us to dig the lake. This is a natural lake. This lake, the alligators, the herons, the coots, the grass, the snails, the turtles, the bass, the crappie, the specks, they've been in here for as long as longer than we could ever even fathom since anything. And yeah, so they have absolutely, that's half the reason I don't comment or voice my opinion on social media, because I'm arguing with people that don't have a foot in the race. They have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, which is crazy to me. And I think social media has given people that platform to where they can voice their opinion, even though there's no ramifications, there's no repercussions from it. It's just words in a phone. And meanwhile, if those very people were to come stand on this dike and let me talk to them about what happens in the lake, the issues within the lake, because there's many. I'm not disagreeing that there's tons that we fight for every day to get fixed. That they wouldn't be able to say 90% of the comments that they left on a social media page, but I feel like they would understand more. Now, with that being said, I feel for the people on the coast, because I'm just going to flat out say it. What's probably getting ready to happen is going to be detrimental to the fisheries on both the east and west coast of Florida. And I'm not okay with it. I'm not happy about it. And it's bullshit is what it is. And you guys might ask, well, whose side are you on? Well, I'm not on anyone's side. This is the biggest form and example of mismanagement of any resource that I think you could ever look at. And here's the problem. When you talk about the Indian River Lagoon, and I'm going to talk about the Indian River Lagoon because it's probably, in my opinion, seen the most damage from this issue over the last few years. And I'm also going to talk about it because, unlike the people from the coast, and I'm not profiling everybody, but there's a lot of people from the coast that come over here and uh, protest about Lake Okeechobee that have never been on it. I have spent many of hours, days, nights fishing the Indian River Lagoon. I used to wade every weekend off of Walton on the west side. I used to wade many a weekends, wade fishing and fishing out of boats around Midway Road, around the docks around Midway. I used to I used to know about all the big speckled trout we'd catch around the power plant and just north of Fort Pierce Inlet. Fishing tons of wade, snook fishing around Sailfish Point on the Sailfish Flats there. I have tons of videos of me doing crazy stuff like standing on ladders, sight fishing sharks on Sailfish Flats. I've spent many a nights on boats fishing croakers or, throwing jigs around all the bridges in Stewart, but mainly an example I was going to say was fishing the St. Lucie Inlet. I fished there. I fished St. Lucie, the Stewart area. I have a kid now, so it's a lot harder for me to sneak out, but I used to fish there twice a week, fishing under the Stewart Causeway during the mullet run or just during snook season, fishing Jensen Causeway on a hard north wind. Like I said, snook fishing the inlet, anchoring in front of a hole in the wall. I love inshore fishing, especially the Indian River. That, when you hear these local guides, I'm going to use the term bitch and complain, but they have a right to, and I mean that in a right way, because they have a right to bitch and complain. That I didn't get to experience that river or that system in its heyday, but the last few years that I got to experience it, it was one of the best and coolest fisheries in the state. I can remember when one of my best friends moved there and we first discovered really fishing the river and just parking our cars on Midway Road, throwing the waders on and just going for a wade on the west side of the river, which was not known for the expanse of grass, but there was still tons of knee-deep grass, throwing jerk shads, skitter walks, catching tons of redfish, speckled trout, snook, tarpon, flounder, you name it. And it was just a very lively, rich ecosystem within that whole Indian River Lagoon. The trout fishing was phenomenal. The big snook, there were big redfish caught fairly often. And same thing with like Sailfish Flats. That whole area just had really good seagrass, or I don't know. I'm not going to act like I know the names of all the grasses that were growing in there, but the grass was very thick. The pinfish were super plentiful. I remember when like Berkeley Gulp first came out, you literally couldn't hardly use it because it worked so well and it attracted the pinfish, the pufferfish that were all living in the grass flats out there, and they would peck your bait off the hook and just eat it to shreds. And it was one of the coolest places I had ever experienced. And when I really got dialed into fishing it, we used to drive up and fish the bridges and the causeways during the mullet run, or just like I said before, during snook season, or fish the inlet during the spawn from a boat. But when my friend moved up there and we were able to really take advantage of all the fishing and the fisheries that one ecosystem, that one estuary had to offer, it was one of the coolest places I could remember. And I was literally up there every single weekend after work, during the week, taking as much advantage of that place as I can. And it's gone. And when I say it's gone, I mean it's gone. And what's crazy about that whole system is when I said it disappeared fast, very fast. The trout fishing was known for being very good in the winter. The cold months is when you were able to go out and catch 100 trout a day, and your real big speckled sea trout. And we would go out there in the middle of July and just bail trout after trout, and the numbers were great. And now this is no exaggeration when you hear these guides and these captains from that local area talk about it. Good luck if you can catch a trout. That's not bullshit. That's not exaggerated. I mean, that's it. You got jacks and you got snook, and like Mike Holiday, who is someone that I greatly, greatly respect, one of the best captains and guides, definitely the best in the area, says, what that's doing is our snook fishing is still phenomenal in the area, but the snook are getting absolutely pounded because they're the only thing to target in the Indian River Lagoon that once has all these species. I mean, you really can't find redfish. You're not finding trout. There's no flounder because there's no bait. There's no grass. There's no seagrass to hold the pinfish and things in. So, really, that whole fishery is just decimated from this problem of Lake Okeechobee discharges that come their way. And same thing with the West Coast. That whole Fort Myers, the Sanibel, Captiva, all that is obviously affected from the discharges from Lake Okeechobee. And it's terrible. I do fish over on the West Coast. I've fished Captiva a pretty good bit. I've fished redfish pass. I've fished, spent a lot of time over there snook and tarpon and redfish fishing. I've walked the beaches of Sanibel. We used to go over there every summer, and I know they're seeing effects from this as well. So none of this is lost on me, and I don't think any of these people are exaggerating to the least bit. It's a problem, and it's bullshit that, trust me, I'm mad I can't go drive over to Walton Road, hop out of my truck with with a thing of waders, a pack of jerk shads, and a pack of three jig heads, and a spool of 20-pound or 25-pound fluoro, and a 3,000 spinner, and go for a wade and catch a ton of fish. But I think a misconception as to why all that grass is gone. And the fact that their fishery is being taken away, I feel like they just blame it on Lake Okeechobee. And Lake Okeechobee gets this horrible rap, like I was talking about. The word toxic gets thrown around so much. And listen, here's the deal, guys. Like, everyone says I have a biased opinion, and I just don't want the word toxic being thrown around because it's going to hurt my business, and no one's going to want to come down and fish Lake Okeechobee with me. And, I got to put bread on the table and food on the table and take care of my family. That's not what it is. Listen, I mean, 80% of my clientele is kind of like, listen, A, they don't listen to our local news, and B, as long as there's big bass being posted on Facebook and Instagram or on my YouTube videos, they're coming. So it's not going to affect my business per se for bad press on Lake Okeechobee. It's more or less just, I love this lake. I love everything about it, and I don't like it being disrespected, especially when it's all false. It's all false press. Nothing that gets said about this lake in the media is true. Nearly nothing. And the word toxic, I don't even know how that got started, where it came from, or what's going on with it. But the lake is not toxic. If it was toxic, we'd have nothing living in it. All right. For those of you that don't know, we have a massive population of jacks, ladyfish, snook, and tarpon that live in the lake. And this is just good timing, had a pot of tarpon around the boat today. Couldn't get them to eat, but we had, a pot of, I don't know, I'd say 6 or 7 tarpon swimming around the boat today. Manatees, loads of manatees. We have more manatees in this lake than I think in the state of Florida all around. It's unreal how many are in here. Bull sharks, lots of different species that people don't think about call this lake home. And if this lake was toxic, hell, if it was toxic, the bass and bluegill and gar wouldn't even live in it. And I feel like people use the word toxic, A, to get their point across and be heard. It's a louder word. But also because they're not really understanding what's happening to their local area when they have fish die off, they have grass die off. The water looks a browner, darker color. And people are just under the impression, well, yeah, it's horrible, shitty water. So that's what's happening. But that's not what's happening at all. And what it comes down to, before we get into the whole issue as to why I'm upset that they're going to be discharging water, is I've said this before. So if you've heard it before, bear with me. I apologize, but it's fresh water. It is fresh water. And you were talking about a system like the Indian River Lagoon, or the Bay of Fort Myers, or whatever, that is a saltwater estuary. So if you look at the Indian River Lagoon and you're talking about the water that's coming in through the Fort Pierce Inlet and the St. Lucie Inlet, obviously you have local runoff. You have some rain runoff, and things like that, but it's a saltwater estuary. Every incoming tide, that water's coming straight in off the Atlantic Ocean, and it is, besides a few times a year, 100% saltwater. I don't know all the scientific words for, what the salinity typically is and all that. I just know it's a saltwater ecosystem. And when you take a saltwater system and you dump billions with a B, billions of gallons of fresh water into that system, you shock the system. You shock it. It's literally a tidal wave of fresh water with literally no salinity to it that overtakes the salt water in the estuary. That, listen, 90% of the fish are going to live, if not more than that, because they have fins. They're not dumb. When that amount of fresh water hits their gills, hits their system, they sense something's wrong, they book it. I don't think the fish necessarily die, all right? In some cases, I'm sure there is some. But they evacuate the area. So when you have these freshwater dumps, and I've encountered them many a times fishing around Stewart and things, the bite goes dead because it draws and drives so much of that life. So all the pinfish, the mullet, the snook, the tarpon, the redfish, the trout, it drives them out to get away from that tidal wave of freshwater. Whereas what people need to understand is, yes, we have snook and tarpon in Lake Okeechobee. We have tons. We'll just take a snook, for example. They're healthy, fat, and this is no BS. I've got pictures, and all of you guys that follow me on social media or follow me on YouTube, see me catching them. They're some of the most beautiful snook you've ever seen. I mean, they look like you pulled them off of, Sanibel Island Beach, caught them on a white bait. But that snook has gradually, on its own terms, swam from the St. Lucie area or the Fort Myers area up, we'll say St. Lucie, up the St. Lucie Canal, way up into the brackish water. Went through a boat lock, got stuck in a boat lock with a big sport fisher or a yacht going through the lock. Came out the lock when the boat did. Now it's in the St. Lucie waterway, and eventually swam up to the next lock, to the Port Mayaca lock on the east side of the lake here, and eventually was in pure fresh water and gradually made that adjustment and made its way into fresh water. And now it's here. Whereas if you took that same snook, and I obviously think, honestly think, that these snook and tarpon are actually breeding in fresh water here. I know the Snook Foundation and stuff. Oh, snook need this much salinity to. Well, maybe the Lake has some salinity to it. I don't know, but listen, when I'm catching snook legitimately this big in Lake Okeechobee, and they're 14 miles from the boat locks, pretty sure they're spawning. But that's another podcast for another day. It was a gradual acclimatation. Is that a word? They acclimated gradually, slowly but surely. That water got increasingly more fresh with time, and they ended up in the lake and they're fine. You take that same snook, catch them over here in the monkey box, put them in the boat, go all the way out and go to St. Lucie Inlet and let that fish go on an incoming tide in crystal clear, blue, clean, incoming Atlantic Ocean water. He's going to roll over dead. No question about it. He's going to die. Just like you take a snook out of St. Lucie Inlet and run him to Lake Okeechobee and let him go, or any freshwater system, he's going to die. Fish need to acclimate. It needs to be a slow process. And there's no slow process about opening. I can't see where I'm looking here. Opening that floodgate full bore and letting billions upon billions of gallons of fresh water into the saltwater estuary. The fish have fins. The grass doesn't. And I frankly think that that grass gets shocked, doesn't have the salinity level to the water anymore over time, and the grass dies off. And that's a problem. And everyone on the coast has like I said before, without a doubt, they have every right in the world to be pissed off about it because it's bullshit. That's not fair. Although I want the lake low because I think the lake does. It thrives its best at a certain water level. The fishing's better at a certain water level. The water stays cleaner at a certain water level. That's not fair to the people on the coast. Now, I'm not agreeing with the things that are said about this lake from the people on the coast, saying it's toxic and polluted. And you know what's funny is these same people that give away a bunch of fancy hats that say the name of their logo on there. I'm not saying anything, but they strive for clean water. Clean. Our best interest is just to clean the water, is this and that. But then they say we need to send Lake Okeechobee water south, which we do send lots of Lake Okeechobee water south. No one ever brings up, but they do. But if you're saying Lake Okeechobee is polluted and a cesspool of dying toxic shit, but you're about clean water, well, no. You're just saying that's Lake Okeechobee. We just need to send the water south. Oh, so you're okay with the lake being shit as long as the water's going south. So you're okay sending shitty water, polluted water to somewhere where it's not your business to take care of anymore. This is what I don't get. People aren't looking at the big picture. And the lake is not polluted. I saw the Facebook page from Sport Fishing Magazine. I mean, it wasn't just Lake Okeechobee discharges to be started today. It's if you're fishing in lake on the east or west coast of Florida, your fishing's, I'm paraphrasing, is going to get very tough and bad thanks to the polluted water on its way from Lake Okeechobee. I don't know who wrote that, but these people have no clue about anything, and they just think they do, which is, like I said, it's today's day. It's just the way the world is anymore. Everyone thinks they know everything, and they know nothing. They know 90% of them know nothing about what they're talking about or bitching about or fighting about or arguing about. It's crazy. But here's what I was going to say, getting back to it. We have been fighting for this lake to be dropped in water level for months. 6, 7, 8 months. So I want you guys to bear with me. Let's just say I can get all of you that want to reach through the phone and knock me out right now about what I'm saying about the lake because you guys don't agree with me that it's toxic. Let's just say it wasn't. Let's just say it was filled with billions and billions of gallons of Fiji drinking water. Let's just say that. If it was, and this discharge happened tomorrow, I'm here to tell you, you guys would have the same effect in your waterways. It's fresh water. It doesn't matter. It's fresh water. Now, before you kick off the video, would it be prettier? It would. It would. Would it maybe not have an algae bloom? It probably wouldn't. No. But what the algae bloom is the dying plant matter on the bottom of the lake that causes the algae bloom. And the algae bloom, there's a certain water temp where that algae will bloom. And that's another misconception. The water is not toxic. The algae is not toxic. It only happens in stagnant water. And again, that stagnant water, what it does do, the algae will remove a lot of the oxygen out of the water. So if you're in a dead end canal or whatever, and there's a snook in there, let's just say, and that gets trapped in there and that algae blooms, it could suck the water out. And yes, you could have fish die. I'm not denying that. And I'm also not denying that it's a problem. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just making it out that people aren't comprehending or getting the full picture as to what's really happening. So you wouldn't have an algae bloom, and the water wouldn't have that dark tannic color to it because it'd be clear drinking water. But as far as the fish, the grass, and all that being gone, it would be. It would be. The problem is the amount of water coming to you at a given time. What I'm saying is we've been asking for discharges on the lake for 8 months now, and nothing's happened. Well, now we're in this certain time, and we're in this dilemma where we have tons of water north of us. We have all of our holding tanks are full, and we need to start dumping water. The state has nothing. They're out of options because they've been holding the water too long. So now, in an effort to do that, all the coastal people or coastal fisheries and estuaries are getting ready to get flooded, which is down. It's a shame. It's terrible, and it pisses me off to no end that now, the Indian River was making a good comeback. I started seeing posts. I'm friends with lots of people that fish over there and make their living over there. They started seeing signs of seagrass coming back. They had good bottom. There were some rumors of some nice trout and redfish starting to come back, pinfish, and it's probably all going to get the big reset buttons getting ready to get hit right now. And that's bullshit. Whereas if they would have just cracked the gates months ago, cracked them, and when I say cracked, I don't know the terminology, but just lifted those gates so there was just a immediate, a medium, slight trickle of Lake Okeechobee water going down the St. Lucie waterway and out the spillway, that it wouldn't overload the system, meaning essentially that water, the lake water would blend with the water that was already in the estuary. Every incoming tide, the salinity would mix and blend together, and the fish could acclimate, the grass would acclimate, and essentially all of the rain and fresh water turns into salt water eventually anyway. So it would be absolutely no issue. But when they hit the panic button and send all of those billions of gallons of water to those systems, it can't blend. It's just a complete overload of the system. And it's detrimental. It's terrible. I don't understand why it is so hard for the Army Corps of Engineers, the state of Florida, to comprehend what the problem is. Are there issues with the Lake Okeechobee water? Yes. We are fighting for it every day. We fight for our submerged grass. Like your guys is on the coast, all your seagrass is gone, which is your filter and what have you, and what holds your bait, your fry of your fish, your hatchlings. It's basically the whole root of the whole ecosystem. Us too out here on Lake Okeechobee have lost it as well. We have absolutely none. Perfect example, not to get too deep into it. This is a chart from my FWC. These green lines are the acres of submerged vegetation on Lake Okeechobee. You got 50,000, 40,000, 30,000, 20,000. In 2015, we had 35,000 acres of submerged vegetation. 2017, we were down to about 28. 2019, we were at 28. 2020, we were about 15. We were about 5. And to this day, there is literally on this entire lake, there is about a 2-acre block of eelgrass, and that's all we have left. The lake is still not polluted or toxic, but we're fighting the same fight you guys are, whether you think it or not. I forget where I was going with that. But yeah, it's terrible. I don't understand why. What are we not figuring out? What are we doing? I know people said the lake always, the water used to just flow south and it needs to flow south. And it is. There is water going south. I mean, we have a spillway on the south end of the lake. But I don't know. I really listen. I'm not the smartest person in the world by any means, but there is a lot of moving parts to this issue, but this is an issue that we're in 2024. We got Teslas driving around. What are we doing? We got to figure this thing out. And the main part of this video is all of us as fishermen, whether you go out of Fort Myers, you're a grouper guide, whether you fish for tarpon in Boca Grande Pass or on the beaches of Sanibel, you're a snook guide in the summer in St. Lucie, you're a nearshore guide like Mike Holiday. I reference him a lot because I respect the man, one of my favorite captains. Whatever it is, offshore, inshore, freshwater, we're all fishermen. This is all of our problem. And I just think it's crazy that it's like causing a civil war. Like I said in the beginning of the video, you can't tell me, even if you're a blue marlin guy, you're the leader guy on a blue marlin operation who leaders 1,000-pounders, that you don't get enjoyment out of catching a bass. And you can't tell me you're a bass guy who wants nothing to do with pulling on a tarpon. And even if any of those are true, that shouldn't matter. I mean, this is a big picture, and you got to look at the big picture. And I don't want, again, anyone who follows my channel knows I pray and preach that this lake needs to be a low-level lake. This lake thrives between 12 and 14 foot water, above sea level. Right now we're at over 16. And I preach and pray and talk about the importance of having a low lake level. But that doesn't mean I'm willing to destroy another ecosystem, another estuary to get it there. That shouldn't be the case, that we have to do that at all. That's not what I want. I want to resolve this issue in a way that everyone's happy, that you can go catch trout around the power plant in the Indian River. You could not have to experience crazy red tides over on the west coast of Florida, which is not all coming from Lake Okeechobee water. They've had red tides for a million years, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, I want it so that it should be a plan that keeps everyone in the state happy. Because if we're all happy, that means the fish and the wildlife and everything that goes into our estuaries or our canals or our local waterways are healthy and doing well too. I don't know. Us over here around the lake, we need to stop posting aggressive comments towards people on the coast and really try to educate people, but you're not going to do it through social media. I encourage each and any one of you that live on the coast to come check out Lake Okeechobee, see what it really looks like. I mean, I've literally had people tell me I'm full of shit that there's manatees in the lake. There's thousands of them. I've had people tell me there's no snook, tarpon, or jacks. There's thousands of them. Trust me. They're here. They're thriving. They're fat. They're full. They're happy. The bass, the bluegill, everything is. Don't believe everything you see on social media or just in the media in general. We need to fight for this. Us as fishermen we owe it to the state. Another really big problem right now that's never honestly ever going to get resolved is the overpopulation of our state. Look at it. Look on Google Earth and look at what we've done to this place. Zoom back 15, 20 years and look at it now. We're up to over 1,500 people a day moving to this state. That's 1,500 driveways, 1,500 foundations for some concrete foundations for homes, 1,500 new roofs a day. Obviously, people are moving out and buying, so we're buying new houses. But think of all those roofs. Think of all those driveways. Think of all those sidewalks, those new streets that need to be paved, those new foundations of homes. That's all square footage of natural ground, water-absorbing ground that's being taken away every single day. They're building a new subdivision. Oh, there's a nice block of land where they're building a subdivision on it. And if they're not yet, there's plans to do so. All of that water needs to run off. needs to go somewhere. It's crazy to me how many people are in the comments that tell me I can't even go outside and catch fish anymore because of Lake Okeechobee's water, and they live in Vero. Our water does not flow north. You're not anywhere around the lake. This lake's not, the water is not coming from Lake Okeechobee and going to you. That's off of your runways, off of your driveways, off of your streets, coming off your roads, off your roofs, going into a manhole and emptying into your own waterway right there. It's all going to go somewhere, and it's going in there. Same thing with even Fort Lauderdale. All my friends that show me pictures of just nasty brown water in their canals, that's coming off of your streets locally. That has nothing to do with Lake Okeechobee. The only estuaries that are affected immediately are the Indian River Lagoon and around Fort Myers. People need to people hate to hear the truth, but if you live in South Florida, if you visit here a day out of the year and you drive on the roads in South Florida, you are part of the problem. If you have a house, if you have a building, if you walk on the sidewalks, you're part of the problem. Now, listen, I've born and raised here. I'm a native Floridian. And I always say I cannot leave Florida. It's mainly because of the fishing and how special it is. It's not lost on me that I can go to work in the morning, pick my customers up at a boat ramp, and we can go catch a limit of bluegill and go catch a couple of 5-pound bass throwing a frog in the swamp. Put my boat on the trailer and drive 40 minutes, hop on one of my best friend's boat, and be pulling on a sailfish 15 minutes after that. I really want you to let that set in. We can go catch sailfish. We can go drag a planer for a wahoo. We can go, hopefully, we can go live chum up some blackfins at sundown. And on the way in, we could stop at a dock light and throw a pilchard in a light and catch a snook or a tarpon, all within 12 hours of each other. There's no other place in the world where the fishing is like what we have here. And I don't think our state or the people that manage all of this whole system realize how special it is. It's what brings all these tourists down here to fish with all of these captains that are so passionate about their local waterway or their local estuary or system. It's what drives people to move here. We, the charter captains, are probably responsible for the giant incline of people moving here because of that story I just said. I mean, you could, or vice versa. They go out on a near shore trip, catch a couple kingfish, pull on a barracuda, see a big shark, see dolphin, get on the boat, get off the boat, drive to go eat lunch, go back to the hotel, walk out the back door of the hotel. If there's a little pond, throw a Senko in the pond and catch an 8-pound bass. It's crazy. And we take it for granted, and it all feeds each other. It all does, whether you want to believe it or not. What happens with me on Lake Okeechobee definitely affects you, and what you guys do over there, or what we do over there. I say you guys, like I said, I'm trying to go snook fishing in Stewart tonight, honestly. Affects us. We're all in this together, and that's the only way any of this is going to get resolved. Any of it. We're fighting for a lower lake level and the spraying, combating the spraying that's happening on not just Lake Okeechobee, but all of the freshwater waterways in South Florida, in Florida in general. Spraying the invasive plants like hydrilla and water lettuce and water hyacinth is one thing, but when they're carrying it on and just spraying everything that they can actually, lay eyes on, native or not, that's a problem. We're fighting that. We fight that each and every day. And if captains from the coastal fisheries, offshore or nearshore or inshore, would try to help us combat the spraying, that's more voices being heard. That's a cleaner Lake Okeechobee. That's cleaner water for everybody, more healthy water, healthier waterways. Because that water that we're fighting for is going to end up in your waterways eventually. That's just that much more. And then that's more captains, residents that are going to help you fight your battle for what's happening on the edges of the state. And instead, I feel like us guilty too. We see what's happening with you guys on the coasts, and we say, well, that's their problem. We got bigger problems here, and vice versa. We all need to come together and help each other fight this whole thing and keep South Florida what it is. I mean, there's no other place like it in the country. And, wrapping up here, this was just kind of a long rant, but I feel for you guys that are on the coasts. I truly feel like this is going to be detrimental. I do. It's not good. And it shouldn't have to be like this. It shouldn't. The people in charge, the Army Corps of Engineers, I truly think they don't know what they're doing. And I think there's people in office making big decisions that don't care. They see what's going to bring in the most profit, money. And I think a big reason for it, and I hate to say it, is they were getting so much pushback from the coasts about releases that they held it as long as they could, and now they have to hit the eject button. And now this is going to do a lot of damage. We need to fight for cleaner water. We need to fight for a better system. And someone hopefully in the higher ups is listening to this. I highly doubt it, but cracking the gates, making it looking at it long term. I mean, you can't predict Mother Nature. So you always have to err on the side of caution. We had more rain this dry season than we did all summer, and that's where all this water is coming from. And now it's got to go somewhere. And I know you guys can't predict the future, and you can't, you counted for a dry season that didn't happen, but these are all things that need to be thought about beforehand before we start holding all this water. I get it. I personally, in a perfect world, believe that the gates leading out of Lake Okeechobee, south, east, and west, should be cracked 24/7, 365. There should always be a slow trickle of Lake Okeechobee water heading to wherever it needs to go. Again, I'll say it again. The fish, the life, the grass will have time to acclimate. And the salinity, the salt ocean, Atlantic or Gulf water will blend with the lake water every tide, and we won't have this issue. It's the tidal wave that's about to hit them that's the issue. It'll put people out of a job as far as monitoring locks, but I think it's the only thing that needs to happen. And I think our state's full. I think people need to stop moving here, and I think the state needs to cut them off, and we need to stop building subdivisions and strip malls and Dollar Generals every 6 inches in this state. Old Florida's cool, man. Like, it's going away so fast. People think of Florida, they think of Miami, they think of Fort Lauderdale, they think of Fort Myers. The old Florida look is something you don't see anymore, and it's sad. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know how dumb I sounded. Let me know if I made any sense. Hopefully this gets out to people that hate Lake Okeechobee, that hate it, that want it filled in. Because it's not the lake's fault. It's not. This lake was here before you were. This lake was here before your snook bridge you like to fish was here. This lake wasn't man-made. It's been here. Did we dike it up? We did, because of a flood. I wouldn't be able to live where I live if it weren't for the dike. But I'm not saying that the dike was the best move either. Also, real quick, this is just, if you've made it with me this far, the sugar companies and the farmers get raped in the comments about it's all their fault. I'm not going to get into it. But what those guys do has absolutely no effect, and there's no issue, and they're not contributing to this problem whatsoever. There's literally, that's just a big corporation with lots of money, so everyone points fingers at U.S. Sugar and whatnot. They don't have, there's nothing There's nothing that they're doing that are contributing to this problem. There's things that people think they're doing, which aren't true. There's people that think they're spraying these. There's all kinds of nonsense that isn't true. And the same people that are saying that are playing golf on a golf course that gets fertilized 3 times, 4 times a week, and all of that is going into your waterway. So think about that next time you say it. But either way, let me know what you guys think. Don't judge something if you don't know about it. I encourage you, if you're against Lake Okeechobee, drive out here. Ask to go for a boat ride. Hell, leave it in the comments. All of you guys that book me, don't ask for free boat rides with fishing rods because I know what you guys are going to do. But I encourage you, book a trip. Bring your boat. Bring your flat skiff. Bring your bay boat. Hell, the lake's so deep right now, you're not going to hit anything. Ask me how to navigate. I'll send you. Go for a ride. Go back in the marsh. Look at how special this lake really is and how clean and misleading the media has left it out to be. And if you are a lake local, do your part. Encourage slower releases, even though it's going to not benefit us. Just because it's going to benefit us doesn't mean it should decimate someone else's livelihood or fishery. So that's it. That was my rant. I appreciate you guys listening, those who made it this far. And hopefully we could fix this whole problem. Because I want it to get resolved for both parties, for both of our sides, for everyone's sake. So that's it. I guess I'll catch you guys on the next one. And tight lines and be safe out there.